Hello, welcome to my presentation. Today I'll be comparing LLM models. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope everybody's able to learn something new about AI and LLMs. So let's move on to the first slide, which explains what LLMs are. An LLM, or a large language model, is a type of artificial intelligence that can recognize and generate text. So basically, any AI that receives text can recognize what's in the text, and as a result, can generate text in response. So let's move on to the AIs that we'll be comparing, which are ChatGPT, NotebookLM, Pi, and Claude. And throughout the presentation, we're going to learn more about them, how they work, what their purposes are, and stuff like that. So let's move on to our first AI, which is ChatGPT, one a lot of people are familiar with. We're going to start by explaining the history of ChatGPT. So the history of ChatGPT is that it was started in, that the company that made ChatGPT was founded in December of 2015, and Sam Altman is the current CEO, and a demo was released originally of it in November 30th, 2022. And that demo became really popular. A bunch of people heard about this AI and were immediately deeply interested in the purpose of it and what it does and the many things it was responsible for. I mean, it could accomplish. So that's what happened with ChatGPT. And since then, they've done a lot of updates to ChatGPT, such as adding deep research, which allows ChatGPT to create research papers or research papers on any subject that the user might want. DALL-E, which allows ChatGPT to generate images, and search, which allows ChatGPT to help people search the web. There's also an updated version, the latest update, ChatGPT 4.0, which introduces features such as the ability for ChatGPT to receive PDFs, images, and audio, and be able to give a response to those as well. Okay, so now we're going to exit this slide, and we're going to go look at ChatGPT to get a general idea of what it is. So this is ChatGPT. It's right here. So now we have the ability to add photos and files, the ability to create an image and search the web, the ability to ask questions with audio, stuff like that. So ChatGPT is pretty versatile, so there's a lot we can do with it. So I will start by asking it a question, like, hello, how was your day? You can do casual conversation. But we can also do ask it advice on something, how to learn plus, or asking it questions, which, if you have questions on any topic, that can be pretty valuable. Yeah, that was pretty long, but okay, we can go to hello, or we can ask, how do I become, let's say, how do I create a schedule? Let's use that as an example. So that's cool. And we could also do another one, let's say, I was gonna think of another example. Tell me the history of, let's say, the US. I don't know, an example. But there's a lot you can do here, is what I'm trying to say. Just a lot of variety in what ChatGPT is capable of. And that's what I'm trying to show here. Pretty interesting. I just did it on my chat on temporary, by the way, because I didn't want it to save. So just as an example of what it does here. So let's go over the pros and cons of ChatGPT. One is it's extremely versatile, as we saw, and there's some unique features that aren't seen in as many LLMs, such as search or deep research. There's a lot that's unique to ChatGPT. Plus, it also has its free trial version, which is pretty good for the most part. You have like limited stuff you can do. You can't do as much, but it's still usable without the ChatGPT Plus. So that's another thing I consider pretty good. Cons are that it has occasionally inaccurate information. I think a lot of people know that about ChatGPT. It can give you like confidently incorrect information. So that's one thing to think about. And another con is that it requires a significant amount of computational power to run. So that's something to think about as well. Okay, let's move on to our next AI. I mean, our next LLM, NotebookLM, which I think is a pretty cool one. It's an AI tool that helps students and people learning new skills or learning new things in general. NotebookLM started as Project Tailwind in 2023, and it was developed by a team including Rosa Martin and Steven Johnson. The goal of NotebookLM is to aid students in their studies. It's its primary goal. This is by having users submit things like text, notes, lectures, PDFs to the LLM NotebookLM, and in return, it gives you things such as a briefing doc, which is like an overview of everything in the notes that you gave the AI. It gives you a study guide, it gives you practice questions, and even an AI podcast. Okay, now we will go to NotebookLM and I can show you like an example of it. So this is NotebookLM being used for learning C++. So let's say I'm a student taking a class in C++, and these are all of my notes that have helped me with studying. I can use this to learn more. You can see here some resources I was given by the AI, such as a study guide, which is just general questions that I can use to help me study. There's a quiz here, an answer key for the quiz questions, essay format questions, a glossary of general terms, stuff that could really help me if I'm taking a class. There's also a briefing doc, which is just a summary of everything in these notes, like a document with everything in there, which can be really good if you're taking if for studying or if you're taking a class and they allow open notes, that you could also use this as well for that. There's also this, which is an FAQ, general questions about this topic and answers to those questions. Which can be pretty valuable. There's a timeline, which keeps track of general events in this sort of thing, which would probably be more useful if you're like trying to learn the history of something. We can look at that for this as well. But there's another part of this, like over here, which is our chatbot, where we can ask it any questions about this topic. Let's say I wanted to ask, hello, can you explain how I would output information to the console? Say I'm confused about that. Then I can just wait for my response. And there it is. I have like a complete breakdown on everything related to this. Explains how the operator works, cout, even the first statement you're supposed to write hello world. Just a very in-depth breakdown on how to do this, if I'm confused. There's also a feature that NotebookLM is most known for, which is the audio overview or AI podcast, which is basically not a recording, an AI podcast that's generated where two hosts can explain to you the basics of any topic or that based on these sources. You can also customize your AI podcast to make it specifically how you'd want it to be. Let's say it's a few more days before a quiz and you're really trying to cram in information. You can't see it here because I already generated the podcast so we could listen to it, but you can, without it being here, you have the option to customize. So you can have it say, and say, oh, can you get into this topic specifically? Because that's what I'm confused on. Or can you cram in all the information I'm trying to study last minute, or like whatever you need, basically. Let's listen to a few seconds of this AI podcast to get a general idea of how these podcasts are like.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a real heavyweight in programming languages. C++ like.
Yeah, it's got quite a history. 30 years, right? And still going strong.
Exactly. Despite all the newer languages popping up, it's resilient. So why does it stick around? Let's get into that.
We've got a couple of good sources for this, a pretty detailed textbook, and also one of those big YouTube courses for beginners.
Right, and both really emphasize this blend it has. Incredible flexibility, but also
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So that's very helpful. If I was doing some sort of task and I was like really trying to get in more information before a quiz or studying, like maybe I'm driving to school, I just want something to listen to before that big test. I can just listen to this and I can get a general idea of everything that's going to be on the exam. There's also this other really cool feature, which is the interactive mode. And this can allow you to actually ask the AI podcasters questions on this topic. So we can look at that really fast because I think it's pretty cool.
all those things have to be of the same type.
Exactly. You couldn't
Let
have an
me ask
array
a
holding
question by
both
pressing
numbers and
join.
words directly in most cases. Oh, go for it.
Can I ask a question about integers? I'm really confused about that.
Absolutely. Integers are fundamental, so it's great you brought that up. What's got you feeling confused?
Yeah, please, jump market. We were just about to touch on how arrays store collections of the same type of data.
Okay,
And
I'll ask
integers, or
again.
int, as you
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
I explained
Go
it.
on.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Can you explain integers?
definitely. Integers are those solid whole numbers.
No fractions, no decimals.
Yeah,
Think negative 5,
that's
0,
pretty
100.
great.
Yeah, it just
Like if
chops
I'm
off the
doing the
remainder. It's easy
dishes
division.
Like
or
5 divided by 2
I'm
is integers gives you
like
2.
Our
doing some
textbook
other
mentions it for
task, I
positive,
can
negative for
also
0.
ask
So we can tell the
different
computer a
questions
variable is
about
an int.
a topic I'm trying to
It
learn,
knows to
or
expect one of those whole numbers.
And that's key in C++.
sorry about that. So if I'm trying to learn a new topic, if I'm trying to study for something for school, and I'm doing some like maybe I'm doing the dishes or I'm doing some other task, I can also learn more about this assignment or this topic I need to learn for school. And I just have that also there for me, and I can even ask questions. And I think that's really cool. So definitely something to think about if you're a student. Let's go back to the slides and we can do some we can talk about the pros and cons. Okay, the pros are that this is a great for studying specific topics, for trying to learn something new. It's great for students, and it's also has the AI podcast feature, which I think a lot of people really think are really interesting. And some cons is it's not as versatile as other LLMs. Like it's not made to be that way. It's not made to be like this chatbot that you can use for anything. It's for one specific thing. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Yeah, let's move on to our next slide, which is going over Pi AI, which is an AI for casual conversation and emotional support. Let's get into the history of Pi. So Pi was created by Inflection, a company founded in 2022 by Reid Hoffman and Mustafa Suleiman. The goal is to develop an AI that is emotionally intelligent and capable of providing emotional support. There was a lot of time put into shaping Pi's personality using human-centric reinforcement learning methods. So Pi is very good at emotional support, helping people with learning new things about mental health, stuff like that. But it's also limited because that's the purpose it was made for specifically. So it's not as versatile as the other AIs. There is parts of it like it wasn't able to write code when it first came out. It couldn't write code for you, even if you tried. So it's really not as versatile. It's made for specifically one thing. Let's go into Pi and see how it works. So this can be really good if you want to get into using it for casual conversation or for things related to that. You can ask it a question like, hello, how was your day? Okay, that error usually comes up when you're using Pi, so let me do this. Okay, hello there, my day is going good. Thank you for asking. As an AI, I'm always on to chat and ask, what is it? Tell me a joke. Simple stuff like that. No, that's its primary use. You can use it for other things too. There's also this discover area where you can like figure out a bunch of, you get suggestions like a weekly horoscope, self-care. You can learn how to like fix your sleep routine. Stuff like that. Just a lot of these suggestions are about self-improvement or mental health. That's primarily the purpose for this AI, and it has its own little following of people who use it for that and helps them, in their lives. So it's pretty interesting. Can ask another question, I guess. Hello. I don't know, maybe you can ask for advice for mental health in general. It's really made to have this like calming theme, help people calm down, deal with these sorts of things. So I think it's pretty good for that. So you have a few steps, and let's go back to our slides and explain some pros and cons. Okay. So some pros and cons to Pi are that it's friendly and empathetic, and that it's good for emotional support, but it has a hard time doing complex tasks, and it's not as versatile as other LLMs where it's like, yeah, like ChatGPT can do casual conversations, but it can also give you advice. It can also write code. It's not as versatile. Pi is made for like one exclusive thing. So we'll move on to our final AI, which is Claude. And Claude has a pretty interesting history, so I hope I'll get into that right now. So Claude was created by two former OpenAI employees, Daniela and Dario Amade. As a sibling duo, they both worked on ChatGPT and were important to its creation, but they left OpenAI due to some concerns with the leadership, like OpenAI's partnership with Microsoft. They were concerned with how ChatGPT was being handled and like the moral implications of ChatGPT. So they left with some employees at OpenAI, and created their own company called Anthropics. Anthropic's goal is to make AI that's safe, honest, and personable. And one way they're doing that is by giving Claude its own constitution, which is basically moral moral rules that Claude can't break. So the Constitution had various sources it was based on, like the UN Declaration of Human Rights, just making sure that Claude can't be used for anything harmful and can only be used to help people rather than hurt people. It also uses its Constitution to help with its betterment as an AI by like using it by trying to adhere its best to those guiding rules, and basically like figuring out a few like I don't know how to describe it, like it uses the Constitution to help improve itself as an AI slowly but surely, so it doesn't rely solely on human training. So that's another really interesting part of Claude. So we can go to Claude right here. Okay, this is my account on Claude. I like the little animation here. In general, I'd say this is probably my favorite UI from out of all the ones that we went over. They're all good, but for me, this one's my favorite. I like the colors, so you can ask it. We can go over first everything here. We can upload files, take a screenshot, add our GitHub. Those are some unique things that you won't find on other AI ones, like adding your GitHub and stuff. So that's interesting. There's a customizing how Claude responds to our questions, which I think is pretty interesting. That's definitely something you would need, that I kind of miss in ChatGPT when you have things like ChatGPT, because like ChatGPT, you can ask it a small question, it can give you like a really long explanation. Maybe you rather prefer something concise, you know. There's these are different types of models, and there's some what's the word? There's some suggestions of what maybe we can ask Claude, like code, life stuff, learning new things, writing, Claude's choice. Let's say you want to do some writing. I'm gonna make it concise because I don't want it to take too long. How do you, let's say create a blog article series. Why don't we do that? Okay, and then we can work on that. That's pretty interesting. I don't want to work on that too long. Maybe we'll just do that really fast. What's the topic? Let's say programming, because that seems in theme and target audience. Let's say students. Students, as an example. I like the little animations they have here. That's very cute, so. And then we're getting our little blog, our whole plan for it. That's pretty cool. Very in depth. I could actually use this to make like a blog if I wanted to. Very effective. It's very cool. So we can also, I'm gonna try and do some things with the writing here, the different forms of writing. Let's say I wanted to have Claude tell me a joke, but I want it to be a really formal joke. Let's try that and see what we would get. And we got one based on our audience for our programming game, so that's pretty cool. Let's say you want something that's more explanatory. How does Java work? I'd say that's what I'm wondering. Now it will walk me through it. Say you want something concise. You don't want anything too long. What is C++? Oh, forgot the C part. There we go. All right. Yeah, that's a bit more concise than this. Not as wordy, not as long. So that's Claude. I think Claude's pretty good. So we'll move on to the pros and cons. Some pros are that it does have the ethics. That I think that's a big thing for everyone in terms of AI. A lot of people are concerned about that, so that's pretty positive. Another one is its ability to analyze large text, like it can analyze books, large essays. We can also use the writing style to decide how Claude writes things for you, which I think is definitely needed with other AIs for sure. You know, it can always write too much or too little, and you need to respond again. So that's pretty good. That's a very positive thing. One thing is that one con is that it can be overly cautious in its response because it's not really determining its morality based on like humans. It as a like AI is explaining it. It errs on the side of caution, which can get rid of some nuance and sometimes when you need that. It occasionally crashes. It can also be very wordy. So as you can see, a lot of the things we asked for, we got like very long responses. And maybe that's not what you're looking for in the moment. Maybe you want something very short. It's the same thing with like the code, for example, when it generates code, it's usually like very trying to be very complete, but well, we'll get into the code later on because actually right now, because we're going to be comparing LLM models and seeing how it responds to the same prompt. And our prompt is going to be code creation. So it's going to create a number game for us in C++ that will have players choosing between 10, going through 10 get chances to pick a number from 1 to through 1,000 that's randomly generated. So, and it's at the end, we're told how many numbers off we were after our 10 chances. So let's start with ChatGPT's code. And to do that, I'm just going to go here. Yeah, here's the code. Here's our code, and we're going to copy paste it into GDB compiler. Okay, so here's our code, and I think there's some things we could say about this. The logic is pretty consistent here. It's not too wordy, it's not too long. The logic here is good, it works perfectly as the way it should. There's some emojis, which I haven't seen before in like code. I've never thought of coding and adding emojis, but I guess that's an interesting idea. It also adds a bit of like color to everything, so it's nice. Overall, there's a lot of if you look at everything here, we're having to guess and can put in our input here, get a general idea of what's going on here. It's pretty good. We get 10 chances. So I'd say a lot of ChatGPT's code is based on like wanting to focus on the user experience and kind of engagement with the emojis, with the formatting, as well as even the way the code's written, making sure it's clear and concise and easy to understand, not too long. So maybe somebody if they wanted to try and understand it, could break it down really easily. And yeah, if that's what you're looking for, I think at least for this like specific prompt, I think ChatGPT is pretty good in that regard. So we'll look at the next AI, so which is NotebookLM. The next AI's response. This is NotebookLM's response to this question. Let's take it to GDB compiler. Yeah, there it is. And as you can clearly see, there's a lot of comments because the goal here with this is to help people understand the topic. So they're adding a lot of comments, just trying to explain how each line works. In order to code this, I used this. So this is it was given all the C++ information and it broke it down, and it could create this code and break down on all the understanding based on those notes. Another thing I want to mention is it included, besides the notes on here, it also included like an explanation under the code, this is like a screenshot of the response after. See, it explains the loop, the random numbers, the input, the variables, the conditions. So this would be very good for a student who's trying to study C++ and understand it. This would be a very good way to do that. And you can also give the game a little attempt and see how we do. Too high, so it's 400. 300. 450. 440. Just to generally see how this game goes. Oh, my bad. Okay. Oh, I was actually close. But yeah, it works pretty well. It does what it was meant to do for the most part. And it's very good for studying. As we can clearly see by all these comments, our code's not too long, pretty easy to understand. So let's move on to our next one, which is Pi. So let's take our code from here. Let me get the whole thing. Now, let's see what Pi was able to give us. This is our code from Pi. and it doesn't work. And the main reason it doesn't work is because there's no for loop for the guess. It only allows you to put it in once, so all this other code doesn't work. It's also very short. And even though it didn't work, I still thought it was a good idea to put this in the presentation because it's kind of highlights the importance of using the right LLM for the task you're kind of looking for. Like for this, if our goal is to create this game, we don't want to use Pi for that because Pi wasn't made for that. As you can clearly see, every AI kind of had its own version of it. None of them were exactly the same, even though the game could technically be made the same. Every AI kind of had its own way of doing it, so it's really important that we know, okay, I want to do this task. Which chatbot would be the best to fulfill that task correctly? So I just wanted to put that here to highlight it. The code was also very short, so that's also something to keep in mind. Our last one is Claude, and Claude actually really impressed me with its response, so I will show you that right now. All right. Stop this. That again. And I'd say that this code is definitely the most concise and finished. I've noticed that Claude's coding abilities, it seems to prefer complete finished code, just finishing the assignment finishing whatever task completely, finishing all its programming completely, you know what I mean? Like just getting it 100% done to the best of its ability, which can be good if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking to say learn a language and you want an example of like, let's say just one example of a small array, maybe Claude isn't what you're looking for because it's going to make this big concise code and maybe you're looking for a small example for something you might need. But in terms of making it finished complete code that's really ready to just use right out of the gate, Claude's very good with that. As you can see, it's like longer than ChatGPT's code, includes things that even ChatGPT and NotebookLM didn't. The formatting is also really good. You noticed before with the ChatGPT formatting wasn't as good. It was good for the most part, but the emojis especially, they weren't exactly where they should have been in some cases. So this game is pretty good for the most part, really easy to use. And give it a play right now just to see it in general. I wanted to show it off fully. $125. Okay, I've used all my attempts. It was 122. You were close. And that's very concise. The response is also very detailed. Definitely the most concise code we kind of got here. So the most completed code we got here. And that would be all for the presentation. I had a lot of fun like working on this. Let me change that really fast. I'll remove that. Thank you so much for watching my presentation today. I really appreciated it. I had a lot of fun making it, getting into all these AIs and learning more about them. And yeah, I hope you really enjoyed them. I hope you really enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye. Have a nice day.